All right, everybody. Hello, hello. Thank you for being there, providing that you will be there eventually. This is Excited Utterance. It's a reading series that has been going on more or less in Chicago since I don't even remember. It's on my Twitter feed. It started out as a live reading series, and then we were in a venue. The venue was moving actually somewhere else, and in the interim, I just kind of like fell back and stopped doing the shows. And then, of course, the pandemic happened, and that gave me an opportunity to kind of say, let's go and do it online, which actually makes more sense in some ways because I can reach out to writers that are not necessarily in the Chicago area, which is where I'm coming from, or who are not passing through. So that is the situation tonight. I think we have an national set of readers tonight. That would be myself, Larry O'Dean again, Karen Rigby, and Terry Hummer. And just quickly, I will tell the people out there what to expect. The one thing that sets this series apart from your normal readings, if there's such a thing, is it's done in a round robin style, and even that can be done a couple of different ways. And in this case here, round robin for Excited Utterance means each person will get 3 passes. The first 2 passes are equal time. We don't have to let people know what the time is exactly. The last pass is a little bit shorter, so maybe like a dessert. So like 3, I guess, like you have your appetizer, your main meal, which actually end about the same time, and then you have your dessert at the end. And then that's basically it. It's the show's open to all genres, but we happen to have 3 poets tonight. Although who knows what they have prepared for me, because I have not heard Karen read before, and I have not heard Terry read before. That's correct, right, Terry? I was thinking about this earlier. We haven't met in the past, right?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I was trying to remember if we had met at AWP or if you had, when I was living in California. In the back of my mind, I was like, did I meet him there once? And but my memory is very dubious at times. So I was totally afraid that you'd say, man, we went to the racetrack and we had steaks together by the sea, but that is not the case, right? So
no, that's not the case, especially the part about the racetrack.
All right. Well, or either that or you're being super nice to me. So well, I'll take it either way. So I think that's the crux of it. Karen and or Terry, did you have anything you want to say before it's going to go not approximately, it's going to go in the exact order you have up on screen. I'll start, Karen will go second, Terry will go third, but then round robin, it just swings around again. Do either of you have anything to say before I let you guys take a moment to chill and I kick this off? Karen, Terry?
Thank you for joining us tonight.
Indeed, thank you. And thank you, Larry, for doing this.
Oh, I'm really excited. So why don't I do this? Karen, we'll see you soon. Okay, hang tight. Looking forward to it. And then Terry, see you soon-ish. Sound good?
Okay.
All right. Yep. And now I'm at that point where I'm always like, all right, so glad to have gotten past that open spiel, which I don't think I missed anything up there. If I forgot it, I'll make a point of bringing it back in here or at some point. As far as the tech stuff goes, it's pretty easy. You got 3, I think, really, well, at least 2 really great poets tonight. It remains to be seen from what I've got. All right. And as I was saying to Terry and to Karen, the thing about the summer months, the spring and summer months is where I'm living. I get this, end of the day, a lot of sun coming through. So it's very warm in this particular room. Air conditioning's on. But I'm sure we'll see a more pleasant change in the lighting in here. Probably some artificial lighting coming on for me eventually. Okay, so let me knock it off. And hey, Anita, nice to know that you are here. Thank you for tuning in. Since I started this series up again, I've tried not to repeat myself month to month. I mean, originally I was thinking, I'm going to read some new stuff tonight, and then I decided against that. So instead, last time, which was this is a quarterly series, so it was back in March, I read from the two books. Yeah, two. I was just trying to, did I do a third, a different thing? No, that from Salmon Poetry, who've put out the full length collections that I have published. And I decided to read from one that was scheduled to come out from Salmon when the pandemic hit. And it is still in the pipeline, but where it is in the pipeline, I'm not sure, because Salmon, which is an amazing press based in Ireland, has had some setbacks. Like they kind of lost, not literally lost their lease, but they have a bookstore as well, and they had to, I think they kind of had to get out of there, find a new place. They have found a new place, which is great. And so this I'm reading tonight is all going to be in this forthcoming book from Salmon. The book's called Frequently Asked Questions, and I'm gonna like knock off the blather, and I'm gonna kick in with the first poem here, which is called Actor Portrayal. I am not a heartburn sufferer. I do not stay at La Quinta. My name is not Flo. I am not a talking lizard, concerned doctor, alcoholic attorney, proud parent, or umpire with low testosterone. I haven't fallen, and I can get up. I'm not having a torrid affair with DA Jessica's daughter while helping her cover up the cliffhanger murder for hire of her former husband, a cruel astronaut. Do not assume I can rappel down skyscrapers, outrun fireballs, parkour eel-like through open windows, squeeze off round after round of assault weapon fire while sliding on my knees across rain-slicked pavement. I am not now, nor have I ever been, the kooky sidekick. If you punch me, I will cry. Underneath all this CGI, I have two-pack abs. I never once saved the city from any colorful villains. I am not the roguish bachelor with a tastefully decorated Toronto penthouse standing in for Manhattan, and you are not the unbelievably unattached 20-something reporter I will meet cute at the DMV. Hilarious hijinks ensue because we both coincidentally share the same name, bumping heads at the counter. A wisecracking Paul Giamatti as Clark the clerk stifles a dour smirk, sipping product placement Starbucks while we don't playfully banter for the 35th consecutive take. Calls for a drink. Something popped into my head while I was reading that, and of course now I completely have forgotten what it is. So if it comes back to me, I will not go back to it because I'm moving on to the next piece. So this is called Stepford Wives Q&A. And when I started out as a young poet, I was pretty much like a narrative or lyric poet, or was and pretty serious about things. And as I've been at this for a long time, I've gotten, for lack of a better word, more experimental, or more apt to like play around with found media. So this poem is based around that 1972 David Frost interview with Nixon. And also, because of Stepford Wives Q&A, it's based not on the Stepford Wives book, but on the screenplay by William Goldman, and it juxtaposes these two things. I think it'll make sense within the context of the piece. So Stepford Wives Q&A. What I'm really saying is that in addition to the untrue statements that you've mentioned, could you just say with conviction, I mean, not because I want you to say it, that you did do some covering up? If you're going to tell me you don't like this dress, I'm sticking my head right in the oven. We're not talking legalistically now. I just want the facts. Two things I always carry: Tampax and ring dings. I don't even want to think about what that means. But there was some time when you were overwhelmed by your loyalties or whatever else. But as you look back at the record, you behaved partially, protecting your friends or maybe yourself. In fact, you were, to put it at its most simple, part of a cover-up at times. I've told you, I messed a little bit with Women's Lib in New York. You mean you got caught up in something and it snowballed? Believe me, I know that it's unfair and sexist, but frankly, anything that gets him out of the house nights is fine with me. And did you, in a sense, feel that resignation was worse than death? I'll just die if I don't get this recipe. I'll just die if I don't get this recipe. I'll just die if I don't get this recipe. How do you mean I have impeached myself? Dave turned me loose at Bergdorf's and I went mad. You did do some covering up. How could you do a thing like that? How could you do a thing like that? How could you do a thing like that? When I was just going to give you coffee. When I was just going to give you coffee. When I was just going to give you coffee. I thought we were friends. I thought we were friends. I was just going to give you coffee. I was just going to give you coffee. I thought we were friends. I thought we were friends. I thought we were friends. How could you do a thing like that? I thought we were friends. So as I looked this over today, and this book was ready to go prior to the pandemic, and now with everything that's going on, that I could definitely take time with, but I'm not necessarily going to. Politically, the Richard Nixon seems like would be a welcome footnote in my world at this point. This last one I'm going to read, and I think I said something about this before, but maybe that's what popped into my head is I decided I was going to be reading longer pieces from this forthcoming book. My tendency is usually to pick shorter stuff, and I thought, not going to do it. I thought to myself, let's see if it works. So I think I came up with some good stuff here that'll work in this context of longer pieces. This is called Tangent, and then we'll bring Karen in after this. This next poem is a new one, and it's based on a true story. I was in a pretty dark place when I wrote it, and by that I mean mentally, not dark as in low lighting, though now as I remember when I wrote it, the room I was in was pretty dark because one of the bulbs in the lamps had burnt out, and I had been so depressed because I'd lost my job and my girlfriend all in the same week, but I didn't have the energy to buy any bulbs, much less any money, which I then needed to watch because I had lost my job. I still have to watch my money, but if I needed a bulb right now, I could run right out and get it, or two, or even three, or come to think of it, a lot of the time they're packaged in a box of 4, and I could afford that. Buying 4 at a time would be smarter than just a single bulb. They'd be cheaper per bulb, and bulbs are the kind of thing it's always good to have a supply of. But back then, I wasn't in the right state of mind to be thinking intelligently about bulbs, or bottled water, or batteries, or any of those emergency supplies they say it's wise to have on hand. Like I said, I was in a dark place and wrestling with my demons, which I know is a cliche, but as far as me at the time, it was true. I was at an all-time low, sitting in my spare, bulbless apartment and ruminating on a lot of stuff, not just about getting fired or breaking up with Brooke because I slept with her friend from the bar, which was a terrible mistake, I admit it, but we were both drunk and kind of did it on a dare, and sorry about it the next day, though it was awesome. She's cool, and we even like a lot of the same music, unlike Brooke. And even though we only did it once, we kept texting each other, and that's how Brooke found out. Anyway, she was none too happy and dumped me right before we were set to take a trip out east to meet her parents, which got me to thinking about my dad and what a hard ass he could be, and how when he died, I kind of compartmentalized it because we had one of those love-hate relationships that a lot of fathers and sons have, though ours was way more complicated. And it's a relationship that I'm still unraveling. The way you open a present, or better, the way you unwrap a bandage to change it when a wound is still not healed and you can't help but stare at it all scabby and gross, and it gets you kind of woozy, but you keep on staring because what doesn't destroy you makes you stronger. And I remember my dad's car and how it always smelled like cigarettes because he was such a heavy smoker, and how he'd be driving and the ash of his Camel would get really, really long and kind of curl over but not break, and how I'd be watching it the whole time, waiting for it to crack in half and fall, and how he'd swipe the seat where it fell or stomp on the floor, swearing, making sure it wasn't still lit, and the car would swerve and jerk a little, and the image of that red ash always stuck in my head. That's what I mean in the first line. It's called A Fiery Falling Ash.
Thank you for that, Larry. I'm Karen Rigby, and I'm coming here from Arizona. And I'm just going to riff on those recipes because what I have planned for you are themed poems surrounding food. So this first one is Song for the Onion. Let me love the onion, worn by the thumb's touch. Sulfur and sugar, a scent Egyptians believed could ferry the dead home from their sleep. Let me flay the double heart that stings or melts to caramel depending on time, temperature, weather. Let me taste the pure, explosive signature. Let the lioness outshine her sisters, the shallot and the leek. Let the field bury crystalline skins. Let the roots drive the green hands skyward, in spite of the earth. Let me remember the primitive underground birth and the kingdom of sleepers. Let me consider the lily's doppelganger. Let the onion telescope multiple selves. Let me admire her reckless theater. Let nothing else weep on behalf of the blade. Let me praise the onion's sacrifice, a trapezist blooming in release. Pistachios. Crushing mint green meat for the white bowl of ice cream, picture Iranian trees ripening in August. A valley of hands, how a hectare rings. Think of sea green bottle shards, Nebuchadnezzar's garden swept clean of detritus, paper funnels torn lengthwise, red dye, cousin to cashews, but more prized, salt seed for larders by rosewater files, pair with blood orange or crush in baklava, hull pistachios to their sweet engines, from San Joaquin Valley to the Silk Road, bloom deserts on your tongue. Now, Pablo Neruda has this beautiful ode to a lemon, which I've always remembered for his line about the barbarous gold. So here's my own lemon poem. Lemons in August. Mineral green Lisbons, poised in the desert. I'm watching bees drunk with sun, a blistered leaf. Outside Phoenix, west of the municipal airport, cicadas drone in the mesquite's shade. All morning, the story on Reuters is bombing. I'm counting spent blooms on the vine. What good are the rosemary? Orange jubilee scaling uniform walls, the lemons are courting monsoons. Acidic, too soon to harvest, too late to save. I've nothing to add to the prophets. Lizard's pulse under jasmine, a lone contrail cuts the sky. This next poem is from my second collection, Fabulosa, which is coming out in a few days from Jacklight Press. And it's based on my life in Panama, where I was born. Tangelo. Who doesn't love the portmanteau for tangerine and pomelo? Or more like angel, tango, words for wilderness, how I like planting you, reader, in the thick of it. Also known as Honeybell, the peel lifting off like a capelet, the poem a long path for getting at the flesh, its obdurate slickness. A tangelo's not a metaphor for anything, which is why I love its simple divisions. The pith, a lacework or dragnet. Where I'm from, Habib's photo of a bleeding vice president, Guillermo Ford in his Guayabera, bludgeoned by gangs of the opposition, went viral months before the invasion of Panama. In 1989, savagery seeps through what we know. The Tangelo's no ritual, but it's as good as anything when it comes to hooking the past through the eye of the present. I can let lightning stitch my lip or forget a country with dead dictators. It's not the shape of a world that counts. It's the scent in my closed palm. And that's what I have for you. So please welcome Terry.
Thanks, Karen. That was great. There should be more poems about food. I'm in favor of that. I'm going to do a simple thing tonight. I recently finished, I say recently, 3 or 4 months ago, I finished putting together a new and selected poems for LSU Press. And that'll come out whenever they get around to it. Nobody knows exactly, especially not the editor. So tonight I thought I would read 2 poems in the first segment from the selected portion of the book. And in the second segment, 2 poems from the new poems part of the book. And then in the last segment, I'll read 1 poem that's beyond that book, new poems that are beyond what's in that book. So that's my plan. These 2 poems are companion poems. They were published sometime around 2014, I guess, in my book called Ephemeron. I used to live in Phoenix, Arizona, an unrelenting desert when it's not being an unrelented urban sprawl, or both at once. And I used to ride the light rail every chance I got. They have a nice little light rail system there that doesn't go very many places, and very often I'd go out of my way to ride it because I like to ride trains. Each of these poems came verbatim almost from experiences I had riding the train in Phoenix. This is one of the reasons why I like to write it. This first one, there's a character in it. He has dialogue, what he says, and also what I say in the poem is as verbatim from what actually happened as I could remember it. Westbound, little cat feet. A universe of near unendurable suffering in which our fate is to receive pain rejoicingly in order to receive more pain. The man in the light rail car is bleeding from the chin. By now it's just an ooze, but his face and shirt are stained with it. There is something, peculiar about his cheerfulness, an electrical storm rolling over the prairie of his hippocampus. What do you do for a living, he asked me, and told, asks it again. I'm bloody, he says, bicycle, and he points to where it hangs from a rack. It's mine, I'm restoring it. What do you do for a living? I like poems. This one's my favorite. The cat comes in on little cat feet. You know it? The cat comes in. The bicycle hangs perfect on the rack, dusty but well-oiled and functional. Restoration? The arc of our lives carries us forward, its pace controlled by an invisible metronome. He says that boys laughed at him when he fell. I told them, fuck you, he says. What do you do for a living? His hands worry the thickening blood on his neck. I like that poem too, I say, but it's fog. The fog comes in on little cat feet. He frowns, thinking. Yes, he says, the cat comes in on little cat feet, and he slouches his shoulders, arms out, creeping in the air. See? It makes an image in my mind. When the prophet Elijah entered Bethel, the little children mocked his baldness, and, the Bible tells us, he turned back and looked on them and cursed them in the name of the Lord. And there came forth 2 she-bears out of the wood and tore 42 children of them. His bloodied hands shake. We're going somewhere together. It makes an image in my mind. So that was on a westbound trip on the light rail in Phoenix. On an eastbound trip, I met another character who is a little less sharply focused in this poem than the one in the other poem, for reasons I think that are clear. But one thing that I learned from this particular encounter is that there is a very large and very active Ethiopian Catholic church right smack in the middle of Phoenix. I had no idea it was there. The Ethiopian church have a Bible that's different from the regular Catholic Bible. They include the otherwise banished Book of Enoch, which is a book of the Bible that's all about angels and how they live and what they do among us and so on and so forth. So this poem is called Eastbound, the Book of Enoch. We recognize the man with the whip by his smell, even in the dead of night, as we call it, even when we sleep, as we say, like a stone. He enters our dream, and the stink of his sweat wakes us just before the flagrum comes down. Commuters on the platform driven, train driven. The world is burning, Heraclitus wrote. East, the great desert takes the lash of solar flares. The man in the window seat is not perspiring. A leather bag and a bottle of water rest in his perfect khaki lap. I have resumed the studies I started years ago, he says. I investigate the angels who are everywhere around us. The aisles of this train are full of them, and the platforms at the stations. Some of us in these seats are angels. The face behind his sunglasses is serene as the train rolls smoothly. In the ancient book, canonical in Ethiopia, the angels lusted after the daughters of women. They made a pact of silence and fathered a race of giants who prospered and devoured the earth. My grandfather learned this from adepts in Addis Ababa, he says. We must love everyone, be kind to every stranger, lest we offend God's agents. Beyond the horizon, there is a great mechanical quaking, the gears of the Imperium grinding into a corrosive bronze dust. And there I saw one who had a head of days, and his head was white, like wool. And we recognize him because he punishes us for our inconstancy. We are not faithful to our being, like the stones or the fruits of trees. Therefore shall ye execrate your days, and the years of your life shall perish. Ye shall be blown across your desert lives like tumbleweed before the Mercedes Benz. Ye shall enter into office buildings weeping, and drive yourselves, and marry, and suffer the everlasting scourge. That's it. Larry's coming back now.
Nice job. Nice job. I put a little comment in there that it was great to hear the voice behind your work. I've been following your work for years, Terry, and to hear the person, the poet, read it. And same with Karen. I know she's listening here. Hearing the actual poet, or it could be prose writer, to read their work is always such a privilege, and so it sounded great. I'm intrigued by your guitar back there as well.
Well, yeah, that actually is a functional cigar box guitar.
Mm-hmm.
I don't use it much. That's why it's hanging on the wall, because it's pretty limited. At least when I played it is, but it's cool.
Oh, it looks fantastic. I mean, you couldn't have picked a better place. I don't know if you do this online stuff usually, and this is like your sweet spot. You can see I just have the chaos behind me here, but you've got like the little bit of the picture there. You've got the guitar behind you. It's perfectly framed.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I will let you go. You probably want to take a breather, and it sounded great. Looking forward to your second set.
Great. Thank you, Larry.
Yep. And I appreciate Karen and Terry taking the time to be here tonight. So I will move on to my next set. Again, these are all poems from Frequently Asked Questions, which hopefully Salmon will be bringing out. My guess would be early in 25 now. And if they are hearing this, if not in real time later, hopefully early in 25, maybe later this year. I don't know. But they're all from this forthcoming full-length book. So the next one I'm going to read is called Death Penalty Questionnaire. And all of these are numbered, but I'm not going to read the numbers. I've done it both ways before, and you just don't need to hear the numbers. Name and occupation. Name, if chosen for jury duty, and occupation, if chosen for jury duty. Have you ever sat on a jury before? If so, was it lumpy, unyielding, or luxuriously soft and pliable? Do you have any moral, lawful, awful, religious, ethical, sacred, scared, philosophical, illogical, stubborn, stillborn opposition to imposing the death penalty? If so, If offered remuneration, would your answer remain the same? Does your answer ever remain the same? Do you know the defendant in this trial? Regardless, would you feel comfortable killing him, her? Two men walk into a bar. One of them is innocent. The other is guilty. Whom do you hang? Firing squad. Great execution or the greatest execution? Do you currently own a gun? Have you owned one in the past? Would you like to own one in the future? Two men walk into a bar. Only one walks out. How many men should be executed? Electric chair. Great execution or the greatest execution? Freedom of choice or freedom from choice? Free will or free willy? Do you agree with Matthew 5:38, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth? If so, whose eyes would you like? Whose tooths? Lethal injection. Great execution or the greatest execution? Two men walk into a bar, a defendant and a prosecutor. The drunkest one is spared. Fair? Should we bring back the guillotine? If so, for everyone or only celebrities? Are you a scaredy cat or are you a man? Beheading. Great execution or the greatest execution? Name three famous executed people. If you could bring them back, would you kill them again? Have you or has anyone in your family ever been a victim of a violent crime? If not, would you like to be? Two men walk into a bar, a felon and a misdemeanant. Which one is which? This is a trick question. Drawn and quartered. Great execution or the greatest execution? So I borrowed that little riff there from Stephen Colbert and the Colbert Report. Used to be a little bit he would do with the great or greatest. Maybe that'll get me on the show. I doubt it. This is Members Make News. And, you know, as I was going over this, again, this book was ready to go a couple of years ago. And then, of course, the way I assume nothing but the way I write, you know, material as it's gathered together for a book, it's kind of within a certain frame of time, but it can still have been sitting around for a while. So I was trying to think what inspired this. And I think I got a catalog like from a life insurance company is sticking in the back of my head. I have no idea how I came across it. And these were like different captions that I took out of the catalog and I made poems around them. Members Make News. Bob Hendricks and his wife of 32 years, Doris, are seen here accepting the Arthur Tucker Award. The award is heavy, and later Bob complains of muscle strain, but much worse than that is the doubt, creeping in like fog over a bog, that they are undeserving of such an honor. The doubt is crippling, eclipsing Bob's body aches and pains from lifting and then carrying the Arthur Tucker Award, alleviated if not eliminated by 2 Tylenol and a heating pad. Finally, he drops it in the pond out back and says to anyone who asks, it's in a safety deposit box at the bank. Lorraine McGuire receives Teller of the Year for 6th year straight. 6 years is unprecedented. Brad Bailey got it for 5, Miguel Cruz and Martha Akalian each for 4. Lorraine pretends to be surprised, but how could she? She's not superstitious, but if she believed in such things, she would do something crazy, such as drive blindfolded or take parachute lessons. She pictures herself stepping out of a limousine at the Indian casino, flashbulbs popping and reporters yelling, pushing a foot-high pile of $100 chips onto 22 black and waiting while the wheel spins. Student 22 accepted into prestigious scholar program to spend year abroad in Spain. Growing up in Duluth, Josh was used to hot summers, but nothing quite like the impenetrable Mediterranean mugginess of Madrid. After Almuerzo, in the Universidad Autónoma library, he drifted off to sleep, head buoyed by piled books pulled from the stacks, dreaming of Nicolas Cabrera in a floating white lab coat, descending crystalline stair-like structures of steps separating terraces that move by a move by absorbing or emitting flux of atoms. Every day the same dream, Cabrera tipping his top hat Fred Astaire style as if alluding to a breakthrough in electrogravitics, or perhaps the result of a clinical overindulgence in fried squid rings or the spicy tomato sauce of patatas bravas. I hope my Spanish was all right there. I doubt it. And I have one more, and then Karen will be back. This is called Authorities. Escaped convicts could be literally anywhere. So I do, sometimes I'll start a poem with a title. Other times, the poem comes, out of whatever situation, and then the title. I think titles are really important for poems. And this is one that definitely started where I saw that headline and I thought, well, that doesn't exactly make me feel good. So authorities, escaped convicts could be literally anywhere. They could be hiding in one of the ramshackle farmhouses frequently found in this isolated region. They could be hitchhiking alongside a long, lonely stretch of the interstate. They could have home invaded a local colonial, condo, rental, Cape Cod, flat, apartment, or timeshare. They could be napping in some Cadillac's commodious trunk. They could be afloat in a balloon over the moon. They could be crouching behind the counter at an all-night pharmacy, dispensing prescriptions and offering advice to avoid unwarranted attention. They could have camped out. They could have scored a cool million on slots at the casino. They could be in the bushes beyond the bait shop. They could be smuggled aboard the space shuttle blasting off bound for Canis Major Dwarf. They could be spelunking in an old abandoned mine. They could be at the DMV, stuck in line. They could have climbed the Statue of Liberty's torch. They could have mailed themselves to Mexico. They could be sailing the lake in a pilfered yacht. They could be in a dream, a thought, an idea, or a plot. They could be traversing the Tokaido Shinkansen somewhere between Tokyo and Osaka. They could be eluding dinosaurs, time machine on the fritz. They could have enlisted in SEAL Team 7. They could be toasting the happy couple. They could be under a microscope in the lab. They could be jockeying American Pharaoh to Triple Crown renown. They could be in your closet, bathroom, pantry, or attic, on the roof, under the bed, in the larder, between the walls. They could be anywhere at all. All right, let me bring Karen back in. Hey, Karen.
Hi.
So looking forward to your next set. And as I said before, officially, love your reading. Great job so far. You're classing up the joint.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So for my next set, I'll be reading you poems that all mention Pittsburgh, where I used to live. And it's a city that continues to haunt my imagination. Orange, Pittsburgh. Robins pulse at their feeders. Chinese bottle gourds strung along the black elm. Downtown, a canyon of brick and avenue moves toward the river. Water folds over pockets of walleye. Orange is girder and rusted flange, citrine in the oar's gem case. Detour, milk crate, the molten globe on a glass blower's rod. Every morning, the muscular hum and hand over hand, ropes tensing on the pier. Orange is Japanese carp beneath the tattoo needle, habaneros sweating in their grocery bins. French horns warming on the South Cathedral lawn. Every morning, flames rise over columns sandblasted clean. This next one is inspired by the Vancouver Olympics, and you'll hear Pittsburgh mentioned toward the end. To Johnny Weir on I Love You, I Hate You. Transgression isn't hot pink courting down the center of your chest as much as the articulated pose each muscle frozen in exuberance. The AP photo I love for your green-eyed envy of nothing and no one. Elbows out, fingers splayed in sheer black gloves. The instant I think you know each sequence is obsession honed to art, each edge a fretwork left on ice. It isn't the single tassel, also pink, no apology, or the oil slick corset, but how performance masks the hours. The sound of blades beneath the music, the Colosseum breathless at the next jump. It isn't a boy beginning to dream in Quarryville, a cornfield swarmed in snow, but the speed of desire, each clockwise spin, each gesture a spiked rose. When de Blasio's rumba turns, I think of nights I woke in Pittsburgh alone, dogwood beginning to open, the avenue stippled in orange light. I wanted nothing and everything. In that brick pre-war apartment, I lived through seasons of no answer. The end of grief is the beginning of fire, as when the last note sunders air. This next one is inspired by Fifth Avenue, which is a very historic street in Pittsburgh. Walking down Millionaire's Row. Forget about resplendence. River of black beads down a backwards V dress. Better to write the blistered heel where leather bit. Smear of lipstick where I last kissed. I walked down Pittsburgh's East End thinking of you, Fifth Avenue, once Millionaire's Row in the robber baron era. I loved you a mansion away from the road of Shalom Gardens, down to Oakland and back, winter sun outside the Carnegie Library, an idea I had about grand arrivals. All my sins are carnal peonies. I watched the lights flick on inside a Gilded Age Tudor dotted with snow, and that, too, was another loneliness. The last time I walked beside you, a cloud overhang, the color of onion skin, blurred the horizon. I wanted to write, but none of the words meant saudade. In Hendrik Averkamp's Landscape with Skaters, I always loved the panorama of villagers in their miniature industry, their faces unbothered, closer to joy, the painter's name graffitied on the woodshed door. I'll read you one last one. Now, when I mention Forbes, I'm referring to Forbes Avenue. Sleeping on buses. How does she manage? The woman on Forbes, so sure no one stretching for the cord will stroke her face, a gesture saved for the dying or women caught in stairwells, that faint apology for love. How does she know when slate roofs turn to poplars where the Greek church burned? The woman breathes, no one to signal home. She listens for her street the way the blind count closing doors. In the black Monongahela, bottom fish lie perfect in their element. Thank you.
Excellent. Your room has got a terrific ambient sound, by the way. It's almost like you have reverb on your microphone. It's perfect. It's really great. Yeah, sounds wonderful. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to read two poems now from the new part of the New and Selected. The New and Selected will be called Zeitgeist Lightning. New and Selected poems 1976 to 2024, I suppose. I mean, that last date might change because it's got to be a while before LSU brings it out. This poem is, well, it's based on a memory, like so many poems are. Memory is a very peculiar thing. It now that I'm getting to be pretty old, memory becomes all the more tenuous and strange. And things from the very early parts of my life are both nebulous and hard to find, but when I do find them, they're very, very clear, in some ways clearer than memories of things that happened last week. This poem is based on a day in the summer. It must have been 1956, 1957, something like that. And I remember I have an absolutely pellucidly clear memory of being in a boat, a small boat, a rowboat, actually a pirogue, because it was in Louisiana, with my father at the helm poling us along. We were in Louisiana on a river, and the river in my memory is absolutely flat and still, undisturbed by anything, even apparently by the boat, which is odd. You know, you'd think that the boat would be causing some ripples, but in my memory, no. I'm sure in reality it was. But the water was beautiful. We were in a shaded place where these great big live oak trees came over us. So it was like we were going down a tunnel of trees on a river, and it was like flying because there was no sense of being on water. We might as well have been high in the air, except for the trees. That would have been odd. So, in writing a poem about this, somehow or other, William Blake got into it. And there will be a few odd words near the end of the poem. They are names of characters from some of Blake's late prophetic poems, the long poems like Jerusalem. Otherwise, if you hear other odd words, they're just Louisiana talk. It's okay. William Blake and the Alligator. A young man still, to me, he is the Ancient of Days, standing stern in the stern of the skiff, poling us over the jade mirror of the Tickfaw River. Lean, he leans to his labor. He is not a memory. He has eclipsed memory. He is a thing of pure imagination, this patriarch, taller than a cypress as I see him from my seat in the middle of my mind, which is the prow of the rowboat. At peace among pines, the Choctaw call this place. Tickfaw, we say, forgetting, while the water, obsidian and bottomless to my vision, though not to the pole, maintains its impossible surface, motionless, even when the huge green log ahead lifts its snout and regards us. Live oaks arc above, a temple roof, while the old gods shifts and simmers. I've seen my angels in the Spanish moss, but now it's Leviathan's head at the window. Not Urizen or the giant Albion, but America. Still a prophecy of which the helmsman is an emanation, and of which I am a shadow, and of which the fear that lifts me out of my body is the blessed flame, the gnosis my childhood devours, that pure delight. Much to my surprise, after this poem was published in a magazine, it got picked up for an anthology called Best Spiritual Poetry. Not an anthology I ever thought I would appear in, but I'm grateful. Now I'll read one more poem and then back to Larry. This one is about my mother, who died in 2020, not too far into the pandemic, though she did not die of COVID. She died because she was 97 years old. You know, that takes its toll. She had lived in Louisiana as a girl and a young woman, and she married my father at the end of World War II and moved to the farm in Mississippi, where she stayed for much of the rest of her life. Then later she moved in, after he died, she moved into town. And then when she got too old to live alone, my brother and I moved her into an assisted living facility in Dallas near my brother's house, where she lived for several years before her death. It was a very good assisted living facility, I have to say. My mother was reasonably happy there, all things considered, because she loved people and she just sought them out and did everything she could to help people, even when she was herself in need of help. The staff there, they have activities of various kinds for the people who live there. The staff took a photograph of my mother, which is, as far as I know, the last photograph of her that I possess. She's sitting in a chair in the lounge area of the assisted living facility, and in her lap she has a baby kangaroo, a Joey, which is wrapped in a blanket, but its head is sticking out. And my mother is looking at it in utter delight. They had brought in a wildlife person who brought in several animals of various kinds to share with the people who live there. And this kangaroo was making the rounds of sitting in people's laps. And behind her, on, I guess, a whiteboard, there's written the words, "Dear Future." I guess they were doing some kind of memory game, or maybe they were doing writing prompts. I don't know what that was for, but it said "Dear Future," and I was struck by that at the time. Then after she died, I was struck by it even more when I looked back at the photograph. This poem is called "My Mother in Bardo" for Marian Hummer, 1923 to 2020. It's in 3 parts, short parts. 1, Dear Future, it's strange how much you resemble the past. All the houses gone dark, the rooms where we lived so many lives, the ruptured sofa groaning as we read the book about the rabbit, the kitchen table shattered with flour for bread, all vanished into an emptiness as thirsty as old iron, a plowshare left in a fallow field for decades beside a snakeskin wound through the eye hole of a steer's skull. Dear Future, I'm still standing there, a shadow at the threshold. My mother was the door through which I entered the light. Now she is gone, alone, through her own vanishing door. 2. With the hands of my heart, I would claw out a place for her in the darkness beyond breath. I would break through the silence after heartbeat with another rhythm hammered on the hide drumhead of death. It would sound like the ghost of Professor Longhair raging for goat's blood from the bowl I hold up in the underworld, that great New Orleans shuffle of hers, so she can dance again with the hands of my heart. 3. No one in the family thought I could do anything practical in this world, Mother. But look, I have raised out of the core of the firmament of my being a great lighthouse made of what looks like gleaming obsidian, but in fact, if there are facts anymore, is nothing but the grief of my time on this earth. It stands on the edge of the valley of living fog where you have chosen to wander, flashing its warning. Do not turn back. Do not think of us here, still going on, because life doesn't do that. We are here on the wrecking stones of existence, just like you. Its light goes on as long as I go on. So, go on. And there, look how solid it stands. Dear Future, see what I did. All right, Larry, that's it.
Wow, really nicely done. I love the title of your new and selected. By the way,
Thank you.
it's very evocative. As I said, I like titles are important for individual pieces, but I think like a great title for a great book is, so hard to come by, unfortunately. But that's really great, and definitely fits, I think, the Hummer milieu, if I may be so bold.
You may.
All right. Sounded excellent. We'll see you on the final pass.
Very good.
All right. Yeah, man. Great. So I've got one more, again from frequently asked questions. And this is called The Dream. As I'm espousing, these the importance of titles, I guess I'm thinking of more something along the lines of, Zeitgeist Lightning, very evocative. The Dream is kind of generic. But as I, again, was pulling this set together, certain things come to mind. And one thing is like my whole life, I think with creative writers, teaching creative writing, but also creative writers on their own. It's like so many of them have said that, they write from their dreams, or, you're trying to come up with a prompt. Write about your dreams. If you don't remember, whatever you remember, write it down. But I've never been a person that remembers their dreams. As I've gotten older, I've started to remember things more. I'm not sure if that's a good sign or a bad sign, or whether I shouldn't be concerned with those extremes. It is what it is. And so this is called the dream, but it's completely manufactured. And I guess it's more the idea of what I think whenever I read poems that are dream poems, or pieces that are dream pieces. And of course, I can never get in another person's head. They all seem to have a certain kind of I say they all, I know I'm making generalizations, but a certain kind of a flow, or a certain kind of a format. And I guess that's what I was attempting to do here. For what that's worth. You could be scratching your head and saying, what is he talking about? The dream. In the dream, I am ambulance chasing with Gandhi, which is even weirder than it sounds, because I am not now, nor have I ever been, nor would I ever want to become a lawyer. And even the friends I've known who were or are or studied to be lawyers, I had to pretend weren't or aren't, and watch my words around so as not to discourage their career paths. Because I just don't respect the law, the inflexibility of it, which is part of why this dream is especially off-putting. Because if I had to be a lawyer, I wouldn't be the personal injury type. It's so counterintuitive to what I'm all about. But then I take a good hard look and realize it's actually Roger Gandhi, not Mohandas, commonly known as Mahatma, second cousin twice removed of the preeminent leader of Indian nationalism in British-ruled India, who is with me. And as I pause and squint, aside from glasses and a mustache, he looks nothing like his famous cousin, having a full head of bushy black hair, and not once smiling that enlightened and enigmatic smile the Mahatma is usually shown with in photographs. In fact, he's rather dour and out of breath, which is when I realize we are literally chasing ambulances, not metaphorically, which explains the whole lawyer misunderstanding, but doesn't explain why we are in hot pursuit of a bevy of emergency vehicles, which could very well, ironically, injure us because we are running in the street, chasing taillights like cliched stray dogs, as wailing sirens fade the further away they get, which is perfectly natural since they are vehicles while we're on foot. Though, again, ironically, the term ambulance comes from the Latin word ambulare, meaning to walk or move about. It is then I look sideways at Roger's face, and although it's not a race, I feel compelled to pull ahead of him, if not impelled to catch up, with the rotating red lights getting farther and farther away. And I think in his pancha, or traditional Indian men's garment, he must be more comfortable than I am in a tuxedo and Crocs, which, while comfy and colorful, with each leg extension threaten to fly off my feet and slow me down, if not cause us both to stumble and fall as they bounce and tumble in the distance, electric blue obstructions on an obstacle course. But through some miracle, they remain on my feet. I'm not complaining, because even at a garb disadvantage, we're neck and neck, and I'm suddenly very proud, which gives me an adrenaline rush, not unlike adding fuel to the proverbial fire. But this is not about me, nor is it about Roger or even the ambulances. It's about living in the moment, which we simultaneously arrive at as a conclusion telepathically, since neither of us has said anything, coming to a halt and doing that hands on hips, walking in a circle thing marathon runners do upon crossing the finish line. And I undo my bow tie, cursing my impetuousness only briefly, because knotting one is a complicated business, using it to mop my sweaty forehead like a handkerchief, because I forgot mine on top of the bureau this morning. Cleaned and folded neatly and ready to go, with the monogrammed initials G-O-D in gold, not L-O-D, which I never noticed before now, or didn't want to notice. Not because it scares me or unnerves me, but because I like being in charge and think maybe this is some kind of a sign, albeit from the dry cleaners, but a sign nonetheless, if only a sign of their ineptitude or their business outgrowing itself way too quickly to keep up their top-notch fluff and fold service. and then I wake up. I'm plunging myself into darkness. I knew this was going to happen. Bring back a little bit more light there. All right, Karen, looking forward to hearing you. Let me take myself out here and make it happen.
I have one last poem for you, which is a personal favorite of mine. And just to give you a little bit of context, when I was in elementary school, I used to love watching reruns of the 1960s The Addams Family, where the actress Carolyn Jones plays Morticia Addams. And she often has all of these roses in her conservatory. But the funny thing is that she would never keep them. She would always snip them and only keep the stems. And somehow that very strange and kind of elegant and eerie atmosphere stayed with me very obliquely. So that could be where this poem comes from. Black roses. None. Only burgundy or violet, seen you never imagine. Fields burning with larvicide. Black magic, lava glut, ruby celebration, holy grail of botany furled like ironwork. Not even carnations split along their stems to drink the florist eye approach the order of the rose. Some say petals scorch easily, the symbol turned vampiric, floribunda staked from Syria to parlors of the Art Nouveau. Always a rose entwined with rose, given in ardor or vengeance, kiss of death, blood of martyrs, novel, noir, baccarat, barcarolle, black rose dried in vellum, black rose frosted in nitrogen, black rose tattooed, genus prized for being almost true. Essence of dream, apothecary, how I loved you, whittling thorns, loved you not. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Karen. I'll read one last poem. This is the newest poem that I've written. Louis Armstrong, of course, was one of the greatest geniuses this country has ever produced. And it's interesting that at the same time Armstrong was alive, he being sort of the Homer of jazz, you might say, there was another trumpet player also on the planet who was, I would say, the Keats of jazz. His name is Bix Beiderbecke. Beiderbecke died at the age of 28, I believe it was, but he left behind an amazing body of recorded work. And by all testimonies of people who were alive at the same time he was and heard him play, the recordings never did justice to his tone. Beiderbecke was white, Armstrong was black. They represent, in 1920, which is when they first encountered each other, there was a cultural gulf between them, which was instantly bridged by the music that they both loved and both played so wonderfully. This is a poem about Beiderbecke at the age of 17, encountering Armstrong for the first time. Beiderbecke was born in Davenport, Iowa, so that's where we begin. Davenport is a small city on the Mississippi River, and the steamboats used to travel up and down, carrying, among other things, music. The poem is called Who Remembers Davenport? Who remembers Davenport, Iowa in 1920, the year the city voted socialist? No one now alive could cast a ballot, and the white boy jazzers of Scott County didn't care about the revolution. They stood on a wharf overlooking the muddy river, waiting for the steamer Sydney, loaded with music from the red light district of New Orleans. One of them, just 17 that year, heard it hardest. On the deck of the paddle wheeler, high above the dock and its straggling crowd, a black man lifted his ordinary horn and blew the world away. No one in all of Iowa knew his name except that young man who understood his betters when he heard them. That day he heard them all, and there was only one. And soon he would ride the current north like Armstrong to Chicago on a golden coronet. Music was his manifesto in a mist. You want a revolution? The clarity of his tone, his comrades said, was like bullets shooting a bell. Come back, Larry.
We're all back. Hey, nice job.
Thank you, sir.
And,
nice job to them all.
I was going to say before, I also appreciate the presence of the cat, which I've heard occasionally, and I think I just heard another cat.
Yeah, he wants in. I give him treats, and he knows that I'm sitting in here and not giving him treats.
I think it's only enhanced the reading. Not to say that you on your own were not impressive enough, but the cat is a bonus.
Well, he's my partner.
Karen, nice job as well. And I don't know if you can see the comments. You both can see them, I hope, whether you're on Facebook or not. But comments about both your work coming in there too. Really great job. Appreciated having you both here. This was like I think we got in really how long? Just a little bit over an hour. That's pretty good. And me picking the longest poems possible, and you were both like sticking to these nice, compact, straightforward poems. It sounded excellent. Would either of you do either of you have anything to promote or that you just like to say as we're wrapping this up? And go for it.
Well, thank you everyone for being here. And if you'd like to read any of my other work or know anything about me, you can find me on KarenRigby.com. Thank you.
You're good. And I might mention, just for the sake of pure speculation, this manuscript that I'm now working on is called Mother of Otherness, which is a title I got from a Sylvia Plath poem called Who.
Ah.
And the line in Sylvia Plath is, Mother of Otherness, eat me, which I was struck by that. So that's a working title. Who knows? By the time the book is done, if it ever gets done, it may be something completely different.
Again, a very great title. Yeah, I would not have recognized it at all. I mean, as much as I'm pretty comfortable with Plath, it seems like every time I pull something down off the shelf again, and we're talking about somebody that didn't write a lot of stuff in her lifetime, but and I'll look at a poem and I'll be like, I don't really remember this poem at all. I get fixated on certain ones, and it's like, what was the name of that one again, Terry?
Who?
Okay. I'll have to look that up now because I'm a big Plath fan. So
I think it's a relatively early poem. It's not one of the Ariel poems. It's earlier than that, I believe.
It's on the Colossus.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
More than likely. Yeah.
Yeah. If my description of when I go to the shelf and pull it down, it's almost always Ariel, and then it's the one that's the restored Ariel that I tend to read, which is they put them back in the order that she left them in. Yeah. Oh well, that's great. Well, I won't keep both of you. I was going to definitely say go ahead and please plug your upcoming books. I know Karen mentioned them, and I was going to put Karen's webpage in there, but she got it from me. TR, you don't really have, or Terry, you don't really have like a web page for yourself. Is that correct?
No, by the time I got around to thinking about having a web pages were passé. So now people have Facebook pages and whatever. I do have that, and you can find me here, there, and yonder. Academy of American Poets, etc.
Yeah, you're not necessarily hard to find, but with the TR especially. But it helps to narrow it in there. So, well, I'm just kind of blathering here a little bit. Which I should not do, but really glad you both were able to take the time out to do this. You're certainly welcome to do it again in the future. My plan is to keep this an online series because, again, as I said at the beginning, it just opens it up for me to invite. If I ended up with a night of people from the Chicago area reading, that'd be kind of amusing because we're all kind of sitting in our houses within a few miles of each other, and then we're online. But having the opportunity to have people from across the country and or the world to read is certainly an incentive to keep it going. So you're both certainly welcome back, and I will be following what you're doing. So I think that's it. You know, our next show will be in September, the first Wednesday in September. I can't think of what that is offhand, but people can just go to the Facebook page we have, and or the Excited Utterance page, the regular website. And then they can check it out there. But thank you again to Karen Rigby, T.R. Hummer, and we're going to just say good night. And you guys hang in there. When we get off camera, we're going to have our special prayer, and then we're going to go our way. So thank you both again. A great job.
Good. Thank you, Larry.
All right. Have a good night.